Okay, hi guys. I'm going to talk to you this morning about the answers to the reading comprehension questions. So you should have already completed the questions in your book with the date, the yellow, written the questions and the answers. And now you need to have a green pen because we're going to go through the answers. So the first question was, what does the word extinct mean? Okay, so if I have a look, I can find it immediately on the first sentence. Dragons are extinct. Now, we talked about it yesterday. If something's extinct, it means there are no more of them left alive. The species of animal or plant has died out and there are no more left. Find a word or phrase that describes how the dragons would use their flames. Okay, so I know that I'm going to be looking at the beginning part of the story because that's the only part where dragons are still alive. Obviously at the end they come back again, but we don't see anything about them using their flames. So we need to skim and scan here and look for the word flames or something similar like fire. I look quite quickly and I find flames. Then I read the sentence. Jin Dragonbourne had grown up listening to stories of when dragons filled the skies with their beating wings and scorched the earth with their flames. Aha. They scorched the earth. That is what they were doing with their flames. That is the phrase that you need as your answer. Scorched the earth. How do we know there's a storm building up? What phrase has the author used to tell you this? So we know at the beginning of this story, we see that the wind's getting more abrupt. There are sprays of water coming out. And if we look near the beginning, because we know it's when it's building up, so it's only at the beginning, if we have a look at this paragraph, we can have a look. Far out to sea, a storm, that's key, was brewing. Jim stood atop a crumbling tower high on the cliffs on the White Bay. He braced himself and closed his eyes. Now, if you remember, we talked yesterday about the phrase brewing. If we say something's brewing, it means it's starting to build up, it's starting to get stronger, something is being created. So for example, if you were to have a cup of tea and you leave your tea bag in there, you say you are brewing the tea. You are letting the tea get stronger and build up in strength. So that's the phrase that we're looking for. A storm was brewing. You might also talk about in your answer how the wind gets stronger and the splashing gets more and the waves are crashing. But actually, as well as that, you need the phrase a storm was brewing because that's the key phrase that tells you. Okay, if Jin had withdrawn his hands, what would he have been doing? We're looking for the phrase withdrawn because that's the phrase that's going to tell us so we can see what the answer is. So if I have a look for withdrawn, I remember it was the part when the stone was getting really hot and cracking apart. So I'm just going to skim and scan for withdrawn. I can't see it. I'm going to look on the last page. There we go. And under his hands, the stone grew hotter still. Jin felt it searing his palms, but he didn't dare withdraw them. So we get a clue from the context of the sentence. Although it was searing his palms, burning his hands, he didn't withdraw them. So he didn't pull them away. Okay, so to withdraw means to take away or pull away. So that's the answer you should have said. What would he have been doing? Pulling them away, taking them away, moving them away. Okay. Why did Jin ignore the mood of the weather at the beginning of the text? If we look back to the beginning, we remember that it says in the first paragraph, it talks about him ignoring it. And if I read here at the beginning, I can see Jin ignored the playful mood of the weather. He wasn't distracted, quite the opposite. Okay, so there it's giving us our answer. The opposite of distracted, focused. He was concentrating. He was paying a lot of attention. Okay, that's the answer that you're looking for. The reason that he ignored the mood of the weather because he was very focused, very concentrated on what he was trying to do. He was in the zone. What ran away when the wind picked up? Now we're looking for something which ran away. So if we read, he stood atop the crumbling tower, high on the cliffs, braced himself, the biting wind. No, it doesn't tell us about anything. Something squawked high up overhead, and 1,000 birds took up the call. Okay, so they're not running away, but they are making a noise. The water was too exposed for anything meaningful to call it home, but the spiders and insects were scurrying away. Okay, so that's what was happening. When the wind was picking up, the spiders and the insects were scurrying away. So your answer should have been spiders and insect. Who or what is the puppet master? How do you know? So if we go to the next page, it talks about the puppet master. It says here, now the puppet master picked up its performance. Okay, and then if we go back to the previous page, we remember it says on our text, the biting wind swept in ahead of the main storm and pulled and grabbed, toying with his robe like a puppet. So it's telling us that the wind was doing that. The biting wind swept in and was toying with his robe like a puppet. Okay, so the wind is the puppet. So if your answer there, you should have had something like the wind, because the author said earlier that it played with his robe or toying with his robe like a puppet. So you needed a quote in there really from the text to show that the biting wind was toying with his robe like a puppet. So it was moving Jin around as if he was just something to be controlled. Final question, what does the author mean when they say the squall was now more friend than foe? So we see that phrase in the text and it talks about it. Where does it say it? The raging swell, he strained to hear it. I can't see where it is now. But we remembered that it talked about when something was more foe than friend. We were saying a foe is like an enemy, whereas a friend is obviously something good for us. Now, at the beginning of the story, we know it was more... here it is. More foe than friend. Leaned forwards and back, battling against the howling squall, now more foe than friend. At the beginning of the story, it describes the wind as playful, the playful mood, okay? It was playing, it was a friend at the beginning, and by the time we get to the second part of the text, when we hear about the roaring waves, thrashing against ragged rocks, he was having to battle it, he was being threatened to fall over, it's now more of a foe. Okay, so in this section of your answers, you needed to talk about the fact that at the beginning it was playful, but then by the end it was causing Jin lots of problems and he was having to battle against it. Okay, those are your answers. In case you missed anything, feel free to screenshot that and check. Those are just short answers. You should have hopefully written some of them in a bit more detail. So mark with a green pen. Anything that you got wrong or you missed out, please add it to it. Do not just tick it or cross it. Add your extra information that we've talked about here, and then take a clear photo of your work and upload to Seesaw.